will be recording this session, so you will receive a YouTube link and a survey as well, which we'll send to you after the meeting. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Safe Streets Coalition meeting. We're glad that you chose to join us today, either by Zoom or by phone. And of course, we've used Zoom for prior meetings as we present information to you. The PAR Safe Streets staff today joining us are Michelle Voth, Executive Director of Prevention Recovery Services, Lynn Smith, Community Prevention Consultant, Dana Swartz, Licensed Addiction Counselor, Irene Caballero, Stop Grant Coordinator and Bilingual Community Mobilizer, Michaela Butterworth, Education and Communication Specialist, and I'm Judy Wilson, Office Manager and National Night Out Program Coordinator. So just please contact any of our staff by email and we'll be glad to help you in any way that we can. As we go forward today, you'll see the agenda published for your records. And at each meeting, we usually recognize a champion of character. So at this time, we are taking nominations. A person can be nominated by exhibiting good character to significantly improve the health, safety, or the quality of life in the community. Any of the 49 different qualities can be considered for a champion of character. Anyone in Shawnee County can be nominated by completing the nomination form and emailing it to me at jwilson@safestreets.org. Before you are the August minutes, and these were also emailed to you. So we've presented them here just for your information, and no action is needed on the minutes. Our staff update for August includes neighborhood watch meetings, but as you know, we are not able to meet face-to-face at this time. So safety information is emailed to each neighborhood. This month, we did send the City of Topeka newsletter to our 140 neighborhoods, and information was provided by phone. There were 3,474 reached. There were also 480 emails and calls for service. National Night Out emails were sent in August to 1,911 people. While we'd like to see the National Night Out events this year, we're also aware of the need to protect the health of our community. With public health and safety in mind, the Topeka-Shawnee County National Night Out is canceled this year, which was scheduled for October the 10th. National Night Out, as you know, is a great community event that aims to bring people together with the goal of knowing your neighbor and enhancing police-community relations. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and recommendations from the Shawnee County Health Department, we do not believe it is in the best interest of public health and safety to host the neighborhood gatherings this year. Topeka-Shawnee County had 80 National Night Out events with approximately 12,000 people attending in 2019. And as you're probably aware, Topeka and Shawnee County was ranked 5th in the nation of population 100,000 to 300,000 in 2019. We appreciate our neighborhoods, all the work they've done to plan for National Night Out each year, and we're thankful for the public's understanding in making the difficult decision that we already are planning for 2021 National Night Out. All 34 of our sponsors were contacted and are on board for National Night Out 2021. And most of the neighborhoods have already moved their registration from 2020 to 2021, so they don't have to pre-register. So please check out our Facebook. You'll see there under our media, the Lock It, Remove It, or Lose It, or as known as LIRI Facebook, which has about 187 people reached for this month. Also our National Night Out Facebook with 257 reached, and our Safe Streets Coalition Facebook with 1,534. You want to check out the Prevention and Recovery, the PARS Facebook, for updated information, including meetings and trainings. On the Latino initiatives, There were 2 presentations provided in Spanish through Facebook. The Latino Facebook reached 4,377 people. As you probably have read in the paper, a lot has been communicated about the 2020 census. Right here in Shawnee County, we have about 40,000 people who have not yet completed the form to register for the census. So if you would please, you can respond by going out online to the 2020census.gov, or you can call either one of those telephone numbers listed. One is for English and one is for Spanish. Now, if you don't complete the form, you will have census takers that will begin door-to-door efforts. And to be sure that you know who they are, they will have an ID badge, photo ID badge, and then also have either some sort of social media, whether it would be a laptop or just some social device to take your information. But if you have a question and you're not really sure if these people are legitimate, you can call either one of those numbers on the screen and they will verify it for you. Next screen. Okay, we have Sergeant Dan Wilson, I believe, with the police department, who will give our crime stats.
All right. Good afternoon, Sergeant Burns and Sergeant Dan Wilson, Big Police Department. For the city violent crime, our numbers are down from last month, except for aggravated assaults, aggravated battery. Those are up 9 from July to August. Moving to the city property crime, auto thefts continue to be a problem, and theft vehicle break-ins. We want to remind the public to lock it, remove it, or lose it. And specifically for the auto thefts, there were 101 stolen vehicles from July 29th to August 25th. So you're looking at almost a night or during the daytime, and we're seeing a trend of a lot of pickup trucks being stolen right now. So we want to remind our community to lock your doors, make sure your vehicles are secure, make sure you know who you're lending your vehicle to, and take the spare keys out of the car. As the days are going to get a little bit colder here, we also, mornings, we're not starting our vehicles and then going back into your residence to warm up the vehicles. We usually do see an increase in vehicle thefts that way once we get later into the year.
Sergeant Wilson, now we'll talk about the property crime. If you look at the bottom, you can see, which I think is kind of a neat way to look at it. You can look week to week, month to month, and then year to year. Those numbers obviously are good. With school starting back up, with people being home a lot, some of these numbers are a little skewed. Like the residential burglaries are down quite a bit compared to business burglaries, but you know, everybody's at home, so that makes a little bit of sense. Sergeant Burns hit on the stolen vehicles. Like you talked about, don't leave spare keys if you have a push to start car in your car. I know it's simple, I know it's easy, but it's also to take your car. Same thing at the quick shops, or you know, you run into Walmart real quick, don't leave your car running. Like I said, we're getting hit pretty hard on that. So the other numbers all look really good. The only one that's up a little bit is in connection with some of these stolen cars is the vehicle break-ins. Don't leave your purses in your cars, don't leave cell phones, any guns, anything like that. Had a pretty successful case the other night, stolen purse from a Walgreens employee. Within 24 hours, we made an arrest on a couple people that had used her card 7 different times within hours of taking the purse. So every once in a while we get lucky and are successful on some of those. One of the programs that we wanted to talk about real quick, we started up a youth boxing program. It's us, Fire, and Salvation Army. It's over at, I believe the address is 1320 Southeast 6th. And if anyone is interested in that, it's on our Facebook page. It's for ages 5 to 18 years old. and it includes 8 weeks of sessions, and then workout plans. They meet Monday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. The contact at the Salvation Army is a female, Robertson. It's Officer Lister is the contact with the police department, and so far we've had a ton of success with it. When I talked to him last week, I think he said he had over 30 kids already enrolled with it. So hopefully it's going to be another successful community partnership for us. So does anybody have any questions for us?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. It's always good to have all the information on the crime stats. Deputy Abigail Christian, she's the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office Public Relations Deputy, and she'll give us an update on the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office.
Hi, thanks, Judy. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Judy said, I'm Abigail Christian with Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. I'm our Public Relations Deputy. I'll be speaking on behalf of Sheriff Hill today. With schools starting up around the county, I'm just going to touch on a couple school-related topics that we're trying to get across to everyone. First, we'll talk about school zone speed limits. School is or has recently started up in Shawnee County. We just want to remind drivers to be aware of the different school zone speed limits and the times that they're applicable. Most signs will say that they apply during school days, which means the days that schools are in session. If you don't know if schools are in session that day, just assume, be on the safe side that it is, especially with classes being online. I would just err on the side of caution and go ahead and slow down for those zones. These speed limits are set in place to keep our children safe. They also come with a financial cost. The fine amounts are going to differ on the speed limit, but you can always count on a minimum of $108 court cost. Our school resource officers and patrol officers are continuing to focus on traffic enforcement near school campuses at this time. Next, we will look at the school bus stop arm law. The Kansas state statute for school bus stop arms requires all motorists to stop when approaching or overtaking a stopped school bus that is displaying its flashing red lights and stop arm. Motorists are to remain stopped until that bus is no longer displaying its flashing red lights and stop arm. This law can cause some confusion for some, so the easiest way for me to describe if you need to stop is if there's any sort of median, maybe it's grassy or like a cement barrier that separates your side or your lanes from the other side or other lanes, then you wouldn't have to. Otherwise, you're stopping. Again, err on the side of caution. You see a bus with its lights on and stop arm out, go ahead and stop. It's for the kids. So hopefully these pictures that we've made here are going to help explain and visualize the law. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we will explain the best we can. This law also is meant to protect our children, and it comes with a very hefty cost in excess of $420. Next, we just want to make sure everyone remembers that seatbelts are for everyone. Seatbelts save lives. That's the bottom line. Please make sure you wear your seatbelt and everyone in your vehicle wears their seatbelt as well. Next, we'll look at a post we had. This mainly focuses on school-age children. If you see something, say something. Obviously, this school year looks a little different for many people. The virtual aspect of the school year does not necessarily mean that safety issues such as criminal activity or bullying or other suspicious activity is not going to be an issue. So we're asking families have some open and honest conversations with your children about what types of things should be reported and who they can be reported to. We have school resource officers in the schools that work with teachers, principals, and school police to help keep everyone safe. So please encourage your children to report any suspicious activity to officials, or they can do it anonymously and toll-free by calling the Kansas School Safety Hotline, and their numbers listed below. Next, we'll look at college age, campus safety. So college is back in session, and it may look a little different this year as well, but we just want to remind all our college students to continue to practice safety measures in and around their campuses. There are a few safety reminders here to help keep you safe. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the local police at the campus, like the Washburn University Police, for assistance, as well as the Sheriff's Office. Please call us with any questions and we'll do our best to answer those. We want all students to have a wonderful and safe college experience. And lastly, September is Suicide Prevention Month. So for more information, we encourage you to visit the Suicide Prevention Lifeline website. That website and phone number are listed here. And the website is full of a lot of great information and a ton of resources. So please feel free to reach out there. As always, we will continue to ensure the safety and security of our community. Our highest priority is to keep the people and property of Shawnee County out of harm's way. The Sheriff's Office will continue to protect and serve the citizens of our community above all else. Thank you for your time. And the next page, if you want to go to that slide for me, please. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us, call our phone number, or message us, contact us via our social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Next, we have Michelle Voth, who's Executive Director for Shawnee Regional Prevention Recovery Services, and she'll introduce our Crisis Intervention Panel.
Michelle, you're on mute.
Okay, something must have happened here.
So I was talking to myself, everyone.
Yeah, you were.
Thank you.
You looked
Thank
very
you, Michaela,
interested.
for reminding me that I was not paying attention.
No worries.
Thank you. So anyway, let me just thank everyone for coming and say good afternoon. I also want to thank Sergeant Burns and Wilson, and of course Deputy Christian, for always being available, for providing good information, giving us updated stats and what's really going on in the community. And just want to remind everybody, while we're not meeting face-to-face, and we may not have as many people as we used to face-to-face, with lunches included sometimes, we are sending links. We are recording this. We're sending links to all of our Safe Streets Coalition. Encourage you all to also share, and we also put it on City 4. So lots of people are getting this information. So just wanted to put that out and let everybody know that more people will be hearing this. So today we're having a presentation that was actually an idea that came up last Safe Streets Coalition meeting, to talk about the crisis intervention team. There is a team that's very heavily engaged in helping in multiple ways in this community that you may or may not know about or really see and hear about. So that's why we're bringing 3 panelists today to talk about the CIT is what it's called. We've got Sergeant Joshua Clam from TPD, Bill Persinger, CEO of Vallejo Behavioral Health, and Chrissy Russell, who's the crisis intake clinician and CIT coordinator at Vallejo. So I think I'll start with, and we've asked all of you to talk a little bit about your role in the CIT, how it impacts the community from your perspective, and any challenges you're seeing. But I'd first like to ask Sergeant Clam, if you might give a little background for those of us who may not know some of the background of the CIT, and a little bit more about the background and what's going on with you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us. And talking, Chrissy, if I mess up any dates, please jump in there. But CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Teams, and it first appeared in Topeka and Shawnee County around 2007-ish. And so it had originated in Memphis, Tennessee, after an officer-involved shooting actually back in the 80s. And the whole point was, how can law enforcement better engage those that live in our community that live with a mental health issue? And so I can tell you, back in the 80s, and even when I came on in 2005, as a law enforcement officer, we didn't receive any training on how to interact and engage with individuals who have mental health concerns. And so CIT, what that does is it pretty much introduces law enforcement to mental health. gives them a brief overview of what mental medications, de-escalation techniques, and strategies. I can tell you, for example, like when I came on again in 2005, we were taught more of a ask, tell, make. Ask someone to do something, and then give them an order to do it. And if they still refuse, you might have to force them to do that. But that doesn't really work too well when we talk about mental health. I mean, I might ask someone to do something, and it could be 5-10 minutes for them to process my request. So really, it's teaching officers to slow down, understand the situation at hand as far as an individual is living with a condition that the officer probably isn't fully aware of, but it's affecting their behavior. And then ultimately our goal is just to limit the number of arrests that individuals with mental health are subject to. I mean, if they break the law, they're not, just because they have a mental health issue does not mean they don't get to go to jail. I mean, if they need to go to jail for everybody's safety, then that's where they deserve to go. However, it showed that if you had a mental health concern, you were 47 times more likely to go to jail than if you didn't. And it's not because cops want to arrest people with mental health issues, just because honestly cops want to help them, but they had no idea how. The only way cops knew at that time was to help someone was to arrest them and put them in a safe place, aka the jail. And that's how our jails become the largest mental health centers in the world right now. And so we're changing that mold, we're changing that mindset. Instead of arresting, maybe we need to hook them up with Vallejo or the VA, those lines. So that's kind of it in a very quick nutshell. Chris, you got something to add in there?
No, so just a little bit about again, my name is Chrissy Russell, and I supervise the mental health side of the crisis intervention team. What our model looks like in Topeka is we have a mental health professional that's paired with a CIT trained officer. On first and second shift, Monday through Friday, those are dedicated officers that just work CIT all of the time. On the weekends, that looks like officers that have been trained in CIT. So they're patrol officers typically that have been trained in CIT. We really see our impact on the community is when we can engage individuals with mental health services or supports to help them get what they need, and to decrease the likelihood of them reoffending, diverting them from jail and state hospitalization if that's also an option. And we really want to keep people in their communities, and we want to wrap them with community supports to be able to do that. We were also going to briefly talk about just some of the challenges that we've seen. And Josh, please jump in on this as well. Some of the challenges that I know that we have is just a lack of resources. So we need a bed at a detox facility, or we need to get somebody into inpatient treatment, or we need a gap between the state hospital and a crisis stabilization unit, but there's not those services there that are available. So a lack of resources, which I think we all understand and feel that, especially right now. But that's probably the biggest barrier that we have. Josh, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Vallejo by far is our biggest partner when it comes to working with mental health concerns. And if it wasn't for Vallejo, we really wouldn't even have this team, because Vallejo is our only main resource in Shawnee County. We have the VA if it's appropriate, and we have Stormont Vale and St. Francis, or I guess KU Topeka or St. Francis. But in reality, Vallejo is going to handle, the vast majority of those consumers, but Vallejo is not always the most appropriate place to take them if they are having a violent psychotic issue or something along those lines. We don't want to put everybody else at risk that is at Vallejo. So yeah, where do we send them and getting them into places that it gets very, very difficult. So I would agree, resources is by far the hardest part. That and we do a lot of education within the public. Chrissy and I do a lot of presentations, but that's also somewhat of a struggle. We have a small team. I mean, counting myself, it's only 3 officers, and it's 4 mental health professionals, and so we're constantly busy. But we are called. I bet we not turned down. I bet we shipped probably 20 to 30 calls a shift over to patrol that our team just is too busy to handle. So, another struggle is just the fact that we need more more members of part of the CIT team would be, in my opinion, to handle more calls that we have.
Yeah, we also know that a call that comes through dispatch through 911, that an officer will engage with someone who has a mental health challenge, it will likely take them a little bit longer than it might a traditional call. So we really want to be able to have our CIT officers and our mental health professionals engage in that call, so that person really gets the time and the connections that they need, so we can divert that from the patrol officers.
Great. I have a question, and I'd also like to encourage people, if you have questions, to put in the chat so we can, if you have any questions, we can answer them. I'm curious, how much training, or what does the training look like, and how much time does it take for an officer to be trained, and then what kind of ongoing training is available? I'm thinking about the cost and the availability of trying to support that.
Sure. So when we started actually in 2012, Chief Cochran wasn't a chief at that time, but he pushed real hard and got it approved. I believe it was under Chief Miller then, was that every officer that's hired with TPD gets the basic 40-hour CIT course inside the academy. And so ever since 2012, with the exception of this last academy due to COVID, they got a 24-hour introductory course. But everybody else since 2012 has been through the basic 40-hour course. Christy and I put that 40-hour course together. Basically, we addressed, the focus is always for the patrolman. How can a patrolman on the street better handle an individual that has a mental health concern so we have a more positive outcome in the end? How can we better de-escalate those situations? So we have local doctors, psychiatrists, sociologists, experts in all different realms of CIT come in and talk. And so we are very lucky being in the capital city that it actually doesn't cost us anything, because we have a large cadre of instructors that volunteer their time 1 to 3 hours at a block to come in and teach, whether it's de-escalation or psychotropic meds, or what is psychosis, or what does it look like, and what does it look like with an adult versus a child, and again, anything that we can think of that a patrolman might encounter. Chrissy, you have anything to add there?
No, we also do provide in-service. So the law enforcement officers are required to do so many hours of in-service per year. And so every year we do go to in-service and we provide an update just about mental health and CIT.
Yeah, I think it's a 1 hour every year. I could be wrong. It might be 2. But that's our own personal policy. That's not dictated through like state person training center dictates training for law enforcement. We go above and beyond. They don't dictate, or they don't require CIT training. However, we do at our agency, and we require a yearly refresher.
Great, that's very helpful. We have a question Kayla wants to know, and I think we all do. Has COVID-19 impacted your efforts? That would be the first question, or has it?
It's been a struggle. Chrissy, you can take it first.
Yeah, so our officer and our mental health professional are oftentimes they're in their car together. So they're not 6 feet apart. They are pretty close to each other, right in the front seats together. So we require that our officer and our co-responder are always wearing a mask. When we're putting people in cars, we're giving them masks to wear. That's a challenge, because when you have someone who's actively psychotic, trying to get a mask on someone or encouraging them to get a mask can be kind of difficult. Also, they just come in contact with so many different people every single day. And so we don't really have the option to screen people, to have those health screening questions right up front. And these are 911 calls, so they have to be responded to immediately. So just our officers and our co-responders are just constantly being mindful of maintaining an appropriate distance with people. People also with COVID-19 services were decreased for people. and some of them were cut off from services because they couldn't have that contact. So our co-responders and our officers being able to still provide some contact in a safe way was helpful to support people. So we tried to help and fill some of those gaps at that time.
Yeah, it's also been a bit of a struggle. De-escalation is challenging on a normal day when we have someone having a mental health a crisis, and then trying to do that with masks and things like that has kind of compounded that as well. And then on top of that, if we do get them to go to Vallejo, Vallejo's protect everybody there, but they have to go through a screening procedure before they can not only Vallejo, but the hospital, anywhere we take them, they have to go through a screening procedure. That's a challenge. And then if you do have someone that is truly a danger to themselves or others, and we're trying to get them to osawatomie to this, that's been another challenge, because our wait time used to be, 1 to 3 days. And I don't know what it is now, Chrissy, but last I know it was closer to like 3 weeks. And that's a big challenge too. So.
That's a challenge. I wanted to make sure if Bill Persinger is still on, if he had anything to add. I know you're doing this by.
I do.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear from you, and then I have a couple more questions in the chat.
If y'all can hear me all right, my small part will be to acknowledge the expertise of Sergeant Clam, who also on his off time or sometimes during duty serves on the Vallejo board, and also Chrissy, who heads up a great team of individuals. Josh said that they wouldn't have a program without Vallejo, and that the same is true. Vallejo would just not have a program for crisis intervention, suicide prevention, early intervention in mental health, lots of other things. We're not for our local law enforcement officials. So Chief Cochran, Sheriff Hill, and their immediate predecessors get a lot of credit, as do the city for helping fund our detox program, the county for helping fund mental health, which is a lot of people to say thank you to. The taxpayers who want their dollars spent on hands-on practical programs that help people right now. CIT and the co-responder program is a great way to do that. We are blessed here, and I just want to say thank you for allowing Vallejo and the team to be a part of public safety and keeping the community as open access as it can, and a good place for everyone.
Thanks, Bill, and I think everybody did those remarks. It's not every community has this, and I wonder if either
That's
Josh
right.
or Chrissy could talk a little bit about that, because not every community has this advantage to have trained people. And tell me about that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Not every community does. We do have a state CIT board in Kansas, and in Topeka, not to continue to brag about us, but we're pretty proud of our program. We're the only team in Kansas that has a behavioral health unit that's dedicated to mental health. And so I represent Shawnee County on the state board for CIT. And what we do is we really work to reach out to areas that have an interest in CIT to get together a training. First, we encourage people, I should back up, to really form partnerships with their community partners in their community so that they can, so that CIT will work for them. Because like Josh and Bill have said, if we didn't have partnerships with each other, then our program would not work. So we teach people how to build those partnerships, and then we help and provide training for them. We also help them get councils developed. And so we work really hard with volunteer efforts from our CIT folks here in Shawnee County and Johnson County, Douglas County, all across the state to help get these smaller communities up and running with CIT. We do get lots of requests, Josh and I do, for presentations, questions, training, things like that. So we work as hard as we can to fill that, because we see the absolutely need and how helpful it is in the community.
Hey, Chrissy and Josh, could I just jump in for a second? And I want to say that, CIT and the co-responder program, came from a long history of collaboration, and two of the sort of grandfathers of this kind of programming in Topeka and Shawnee County that I'm aware of would be Ken Curl and Dennis Bosley. And I want to say thank you to those guys. If they're listening, or if you see these gentlemen, I know that Dennis is still very actively involved, but these great ideas came from somewhere, and I want to credit those two guys with a particular role there.
For sure.
Thanks, Bill, for that history lesson, because I didn't know who was involved in the very beginning either. One of the
That's
questions
correct. You know, and PARS has always been right out front with the prevention programming, Michelle. So, you know, a lot of credit for creating in Shawnee County, an environment where we can work upstream and intervene early, less expensively and more effectively in some of these problems. So thank you to PARS as well.
I appreciate that, Bill. I don't want to miss a couple of the questions that are still out there. One of the questions is, would a volunteer program be an option for so people could be trained to assist you all? It sounds like your numbers are limited. So have you looked at those options? Is that an option? Challenges with that idea? Any thoughts on that?
So I've gotten this question more frequently, more recently, and I've gotten it a couple times recently. You know, there's a lot of training that's involved specific to our CIT trained officer and our co-responder to be able to work in the field together. So just in their partnership. And then there's also a lot of training on the mental health side of how we have to be aware of what a police officer's environment looks like. So we're constantly having to do training around safety, the awareness of that. Also at Vallejo, we have access to mental health records. HIPAA would not allow us to share that information. Clem, can you think of?
Yeah,
you know, I can jump in. Oh, go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry. I'll wait. Please.
I was say it'd be a struggle with the way our current CIT team is to have any volunteers. When I've individuals express interest, I honestly direct them usually to TRM, and with the Street Reach team with Mark DeGraff there at the rescue mission. Homeless outreach is also something that we're involved in, and unfortunately, there's a lot of mental health also with our homelessness. And so, if you have someone who truly has a desire to volunteer and work with a portion of this population, that's a better route to go. Where you know you're out there working with Mark and working with the homeless and working with individuals with mental health that are homeless. That's going to be just as big of a benefit than working with our team directly.
Sure.
Yeah, well said, guys. Yeah. You know, I might also, we do need volunteers in Topeka and Shawnee County. You can check out Topeka volunteers.org. I think that's the way that goes, or maybe it's volunteertopeka.org. And I believe the United Way is, or TCF are sponsoring that side. But there's, the other thing is that I know Topeka Jump is very interested in public safety. And also there's the Center for Peace Initiatives. And so if folks are interested in joining that effort, there's a recent effort ongoing, the Center for Peace and Violence Intervention, and folks could email me and I could get them in touch. My email is B, short for Bill, Persinger, Persinger. That's B Persinger at VallejoTopeka.org, and I could help folks find a couple of focused volunteer areas.
Thanks, Bill. I think you did bring up a good point. I can see the challenges with the knowledge base and the training for a volunteer. I think one thing that's changed over the years is people are becoming more aware of mental health issues, and hopefully we can continue to help people understand that sometimes people are acting in a way that they really normally wouldn't, but their mental health issue is causing some of those challenges or lack of medication or a whole host of things. I have another question though. Does the training include working with people with autism or intellectual disabilities or neurodiverse individuals? There's a whole spectrum of things. So I'm just curious
Absolutely.
if it includes all of that.
It does. I want to say, and I'm going to off the top of my head, that our autism, it's only a 2-hour block, but we have a 2-hour block specifically on autism. And then I believe our, is it the CDDO comes in and presents on individuals with developmental disabilities.
Yeah, and we also absolutely saw the need for representation on our Shawnee County CIT Council for an individual in that community to be able to represent that on our Council. So we've recently, what would you say, the beginning of this year, Josh, have
Yeah.
invited some members from the CDDO to come and represent that population on our Shawnee County CIT Council. Absolutely a population that is vulnerable and needs a voice. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking in the chat if anyone wants to know, there's Bill's email is located there, and the United Way Topeka volunteer link if you're interested in volunteering in anything in particular. Any other questions of Josh or Chrissy or Bill for that matter related to CIT?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat that says, does this training also cover working with individuals with autism or intellectual disabilities, neurodiverse individuals?
Yeah, they just answered that one, I think. Is there any other parts of that or other issues that are included in the training that we haven't talked about?
Not that I can think of. We have someone from Center for Safety and Empowerment that comes and speaks as well, along with talking about mental health challenges. I think that's.
I will throw it. I mean, we haven't done one this year, mainly due to COVID and stuff, but we do typically on top of the yearly refresher, we'll offer advanced CIT courses. So we've offered, like, it's usually a 3-day. We did a veteran-specific CIT program, so there's 3 days of veteran-specific issues. We did one where it was a day and a half of geriatric issues and a day and a half of juvenile CIT issues. Just kind of trying to hit the whole spectrum. We've talked about, we just haven't put one together yet for a suicide response, if you will, or not necessarily suicide prevention, but how should officers respond to suicide threat calls. We've yet to put that together, but that's on the building block. Again, just in the advanced CIT courses, and that's training that's opened up to not only TPD officers, but officers across the board. We've had some officers travel a couple of states to attend our CIT courses, both the basic and the advanced. So
yeah, and we've had Brian Cole with the Shawnee County Jail. He has sent his corrections officers over many times. We have a component where we go to the jail and do some training there. They come over to ours. So we do some cross training with them. We've also had KJCC attend our training before. And then Clam and I are also in the process of working on CIT training for our dispatchers. It's going to be just a really condensed training. It won't be 40 hours, but obviously a very important component to make sure that they have that knowledge as well.
Yeah, and just real quick, another emergency responder, Speak of Fire, has also been attending the basic 40-hour course. Chief Duke and his guys have not only partnered with us in different avenues of CIT, but they're also getting further firefighters trained in the basic CIT course as well.
Absolutely.
I have
go ahead, Bill.
I want to add several things along the question of volunteering and, people looking away to, give their time to better the community. I want to mention mental health first aid. Mental health first aid. Both Vallejo and Family Service and Guidance Center offer this on an ongoing basis. It's free of charge. It's an 8-hour investment of your time, usually 2 half days. It's a great way to raise awareness in yourself and others about mental illness and addiction. And, sometimes you might find yourself as a kind of a informal first responder. And, knowing how to respond if somebody says, hey, I've been thinking about hurting myself, I've been hearing voices lately, I'm so depressed, I can't get out of bed, things like that. If a person really wants to invest in a way to help others and be a volunteer, that mental health first aid. Now, with the pandemic, those live face-to-face trainings in big rooms with 30, 40, 50 people have been put on hold. It's my understanding starting November 1, that we're going to have virtual classes in real time. And so if folks will use that email address to reach out to me, I'll put them in touch with the right people. But that's a great way to volunteer. The other thing is peer support is a big area. So if anybody knows of a person who is in recovery themselves from a mental illness or working on recovery, becoming a peer supporter is also a great way to help out. I can provide more information on that. And also, just want to mention the importance of advocacy in dispelling myths and letting people know that help is available and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's some of the best stuff you can do, is just be a volunteer right there on the spot in a one-off conversation. Somebody says, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. You can always answer, well, look, here's the truth. Help's available, it works, and anybody can afford it. There's a lot of ways to help out, but I'd really stress that mental health first aid and peer support. And thank you for the time.
That's great. And I'm seeing more in the chat talking about the mental health first aid and some interest in there. So that's a great thing to point out. There was one other question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it really speaks to some of the wraparound services, the education, and the whole, holistic, look at helping folks with mental health issues and treating them with dignity and respect. There is a question I have. I don't want to forget this one. When you're looking for members from the CDDO, are you looking for individuals that will work with this type of thing, or are you willing to have parents sit on the board? And if someone's interested, how would they find out about the board?
Sure, yeah.
Or the council, I guess. I think it's called.
The council, absolutely. So you can always send me an email, and I'll include my email and Josh's email in the chat for everybody. If you just want to send us an email, we have meetings the second Tuesday of every month. Right now we're doing them virtually. We would absolutely love to have peer or family representation on our council. That's extremely important to us. So yeah, just send us an email and we'll have the conversation. We'll talk a little bit about what our agenda looks like, the purpose of the meeting, to see if it's a good fit for both.
This is all really great information. And for those of you, if you're not joining us today, but you're seeing it via a link, reach out to Vallejo and Family Service and Guidance Center, as you said, has some of those trainings. And the more people that are trained, the healthier this community will be in that regard. And in the chat, we've got Chrissy's and Josh's email address as well. Any other questions? I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any, but I want to give you all an opportunity just in case you have thought of something and haven't put it in the chat. Okay. I'm not seeing any. So with that, I want to thank Josh and Chrissy and Bill for providing us some really good information, and hopefully some folks will take advantage of some of the opportunities for education and training, and actually just spreading the word about how important the CIT is in this community. So thank you for your efforts. It's not easy work. I know that to be true.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. And to that point, this was an idea from our last 8th Streets meeting. So you will receive an email, folks that have either listened to this or been on the call, for ideas for other topic areas. We're continually looking at what can we use this platform for educating the public about available resources, programs, what have you, or topics of interest. So I want to encourage everybody, when you do get an email, to please give us your thoughts, and we'll work on that for the future. With that, I want to see if there's any other comments, feedback, and then I have one announcement I'd like to make. So I'll leave the Zoom open for a minute. If anybody has any comments that you'd like to share with Josh or anybody else that's been on the panel today. Okay, so I do want you to stay tuned. PARS is having a town hall meeting and benefit September 23rd. And again, we wanted to have something face-to-face like we did last year, and that just isn't going to happen this year. So keep an eye out for your email addresses, and social media will be putting some things out later this week about our event. We just wanted to give you a heads up that we are bringing in a speaker via Zoom by the name of Dr. Christian Thurstone. He's a psychiatrist out of Denver, works a lot with youth, and we'll be talking about resiliency And he's also going to be doing a continuing education training with Stormont, which we've partnered with, on the 24th. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to hear more about resiliency. And so September 23rd, and we'll start 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And we'll encourage you to, when you get information, share it with others. We hope as many parents can join and other groups as well. I think it'll be a great event. So with that, unless there are other questions, comments, suggestions, Judy, do you have anything, or Michaela or Irene?
No, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and you will receive the YouTube link as well as the survey. And as Michelle mentioned, we would appreciate any suggestions that you have to make our meeting better. You know, anytime you can just email me at jwilson@safestreets.org, and we'll get back with you. We do have your email on our list, so we can send information about the September 23rd meeting to you. I know you'll enjoy that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being here, spending this time with us.
Appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day. And it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. Take care, all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.